been a while since I've been doing one of those vlogs. This hiatus was for a couple of reasons, and I do have a much more kind of like a couple of reasons. Well, the real thing is that I was getting a little bit too paranoid about my health because I don't. Lately, I've been having kind of like these episodes where when I when I go outside and then go inside some places, or whenever I go, I, I stay up for a while. It's giving me kind of like these kind of vertigos on my head, and kind of like had this kind of like this headache, head migraines on the back of my head, and well, I just became a little bit too paranoid about my health, and so although I can't say that it's probably because of the winter and all this stuff. And speaking of paranoid on health and all this stuff, here is another reason. If you can tell, I got sick with the flu. And I got one of those nasty ones. And let me tell you, I did recover mostly right now from it. I had, I had the usual fever, the nose, the throat, and all this stuff. I'm thankfully recovered enough to do this, but at the same time, I still have a little bit of the throat, and sometimes I also begin to feel it's been kind of like a while since I'm out of practice. I'm doing all those vlogs, so if I get a little bit dizzy and all this stuff, and I get anxious, let's say that it's gonna take me a while to get back on my feet now again. But I think that I gather strength enough to talk about some few movies that I went to watch before. Well, we hit kind of like this big snowstorm that we had. Yes, I did give myself the opportunity to watch movies, and there were two that I had planned to talk about. And right now, let me talk about the first one. That it was a movie that I was actually anticipating to watch, and I was really eager for it. And that movie was Goat, which is the Jordan Peele movie about this guy who's gonna play football. Oh wait, no, I got the wrong Goat. Don't worry, because I was just making fun of that movie named Him. Because it wasn't Jordan Peele who directed it, but he was a producer in it. Well, the thing is that the movie Him originally was gonna be named Goat, and I even joke around that the reason why it didn't get the name Goat is because there was actually gonna be this new Sony animated movie named Goat, which literally is about a goat who wants to play basketball. And well, that's just the basic what it is. It's just an underdog. It's basically a sports underdog movie starring this little goat who is gonna play out this major league basketball. And of course, the problem is that, well, he's small. He's kind of like skinny and all that. So there's nothing much kind of like big to say. It's basically the typical underdog story. Although it has some elements here and there to enrich the story and all this stuff. So it's basically it was gonna be kind of like it's kind of like a mixture between Zootopia, Space Jam, and every sports movie that you see in those one. And the one that mostly comes to my head is like The Little Giants. When it's about these 90s underdog movies, The Little Giants is probably what's the 90s? I don't remember, but that's the one that comes to me the most, or in the 2000 era, Ice Shield 21, it kind of comes to my mind. So basically that one, it was kind of like the Ice Shield 21 out of it. And if you know me, I like animation. Although this is one of those that they try to use, the stop motion illusion kind of animation that they use in the Spider-Verse movie that I appreciate it, but I don't think that it was kind of like my kind of thing. thing. You know that I gave kind of like my lecture of why I'm kind of growing off about this style animation because of Spider-Verse. Puss in Boots did it well, and this style of animation was also used on K-pop Demon Hunters. And I gotta admit one thing. After watching this movie, I'm beginning to give it a little bit more respect to that, and I gotta say that the movie overall was actually really, really fun to watch. I just came out really with a happy smile on my face. I really enjoy it for what it is. It's nothing that you could say that it's kind of like the greatest movie there is, but it does its job well enough to make it a fun sit. I like the characters. I like some of the little things that they did. It pretty much a very action-packed thrill film, and it's based, even though it basically follows all the checklist of how to follow an underdog story, even to some of the small faults. But it's not kind of like giant enough to to pick and step on it, and I just think that it became kind of like this kind of movie that you can show it even to your kids or when you're watching it as an adult, and you will have a fun time. You'll have a fun time, and that's quite honestly something that I cherish a little bit more compared to other movies that they try to give so hard to bring a theme or a message, and sometimes these kind of works or sometimes no, but this one also tries something more uplifting your spirit more than anything. So basically, of course, there's this like I said, there's the story about this kid who is a goat. He is pretty much a fan of this sports team, and that so much that he gets inspired that he wants to play basketball. And you can tell that he's a pretty humble kid. He's a pretty humble kid. What was the name of the kid? Just in case, I'm looking here. I think his name is Will. Will, yes. He's this. He's a goat, because this is a world of anthropomorphic animals, very much akin to Zootopia. And yeah, this is not going to be the first time this movie is going to get compared to Zootopia. Because the whole world really reeks like Zootopia. It's all kind of like Zootopia. But to be fair, there's also Beastars, so I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining. So he's this kid. He loves basketball. He admires that team, especially the MVP of the team, who is this panther named Jet. And well, he grows up and he loses his mother, and he lives in a really small apartment full of gerbils, in which the landowner is actually Wayne Knight. He also works on a small diner where he's given a job by a friend, and he does all he can, doing this, getting late to pay his rent, and also he likes to hang out with his friends, going on with his life, but he's still always, having his passion on basketball, to the point that he loves playing it. He even stands up with bullies, and that they always diminish him because he's small, he's a goat, he's skinny. That is until one day, this horse, who is kind of like this brutish, arrogant basketball player, a professional one. He gets to play locally, and well, the kid challenges him to play basketball with him. But of course, the kid loses with him. He loses even the money, but because of his skills, he became a viral sensation, to the point that the team that he admired decide to pick him kind of almost like a publicity stunt. The managers go and say, "Hey, this kid is becoming viral. You know what? Let's pick him up as the sixth player. We needed a sixth player, which of course this also brings tension with the MVP player Jet because she wants to have a win because the team hasn't won for many years. It's almost like the Red Sox curse a little bit. And unfortunately, she's also becoming a has-been. Her age is coming, and she just doesn't want to admit it. So her pride feels like that the kid is gonna ruin her thunder or something like that. So basically, then of course the movie kind of turns into the typical underdog goes to a big league team, have to gain that friendship and trust from the one who's gonna be his mentor, and also we got the colorful cast of other characters that are also part of the team, but also kind of dysfunctional. Like there's this ostrich who has social media anxiety. There is the big rhinoceros who he basically tries to play nice because he doesn't want to be a bad influence to his daughters, even though the daughters are also rambunctious. There is the giraffe who wants to be a rapper. There is the weird gecko who has some kind of like weird tendencies. He's always fixated with this jewel egg, and also there is the coach who. He's pretty much kind of like an old man who tries to find his spark on coaching. But anyway, that's kind of like, and then basically, of course, it's the usual. The usual that they have to learn how to not underestimate each other, build up their strength to get over their problems. It's like everyone that you saw, but. The fact that it's there doesn't mean that I am criticizing badly the movie, as long as it's done well, and it does. Because when there are emotional parts, especially when we hear about Will and the relationship that he has with his mother and why he is insistent on trying to make his dream come true and making the most of his life and making the most of what he can do and trying to push others to let him have a chance to play. And that's kind of like the heart of it. And I want the characters are pretty likable. I will say that probably the one that actually has the most meat when it's about character depth and development is actually Jet, the Panther. She, like I say, she has been kind of like being a has-been, and she also is kind of like intimidating because she doesn't have kind of like the nicest of attitudes, I'll say. But once you kind of hear her problems about being and being preoccupied about people criticizing her and all these things, you kind of begin to understand her. And the movie is actually kind of making, with the other character, it's kind of like trying to ignore what people say and trying to break expectation by showing what you can do and not what other people do. Although it's mostly centered, this theme is mostly centered on, well, at least in my eye, with Will, the ostrich, and of course Jet. Jet is actually the one that has kind of like the most interesting of all the character development, even to the the low point that all these movies have. And well, it kind of shows. Although it sometimes the movie kind of rushes a little bit too much on some areas in which I think this movie could have been more kind of like a TV series more than anything. But I just putting a little bit of iShield 21 logic out of it. That's pretty much the thing I could say. I think I already talked about the animation. Although I will say that not only the animation is kind of like good and again pointless to talk because it's already professional and all this stuff, but I will give them credit about how they really imitate in a good way what people could learn from Zootopia and Beastars, in which they try to make the kind of like the world fit in not just for an anthropomorphic world, but also in an animal world. It says the movie. The movie, while it has anthropomorphized animals, you know that they can get away with some human behavior, but I like that they still had the acknowledgement that they're still animals. They still have their own, their differences. Their body structure, their natural behavior, what they eat, and all this stuff. And in this case, let's say that if Zootopia is kind of more like if I could put kind of like a comparison, it's more kind of like a nice metropolis. The world of Goat is mostly how New York will be if it was anthropomorphized. As I really like the touches, it has more trees that make it look more like kind of like a jungle or something like that. That I can appreciate. Okay, that I can appreciate. But also, what I can appreciate a lot about this movie is about the games, because I was saving some of that at least for the best, because you might think that it's just basketball, and you're just watching, playing basketball. No, they actually decided to put the extra layer in the action, in which apparently it's not just basketball, but what would you get if basketball you kind of turn it into the most dangerous game, or what was it? Or kind of like Alita Battle Angel a scenario, or a death game, or Deadman Wonderland. Why? Because they kind of wanted to make it a little bit more video gaming by having that not only you play basketball, but that each stadium that they go, they have different hazards or different environments in order to make the game more challenging. Like, for example, they go to an ice level where even the ice can break. There's stalactites, or the earth, or kind of like something that looks like a mountain. They have mountains and all this stuff. They have a water level. Where they have to deal with a stadium that can get full of water, or in the final game, of course, they go to a world where it's volcano. They're playing in a stadium that is almost like a volcano. Seriously, it's almost like the director playing Mario Striker and got the idea for that. This is such a Super Mario sports game, and you know what? Watching it on the big screen, it just feels like awesome. And you know what? I appreciate it because that makes make the movie more dynamic, I'll say. That's pretty much the whole thing. That I could say at least as a positive. Okay, let's give it some negative, and so in order to, well, for lack of better words, not give it too much ego in this movie. If there's a little bit of the weak part about this movie, is that maybe in the third act something kind of like happened that you feel like it wasn't exactly kind of like too strong, because they could have it felt like it resolved a little bit too easy. Let's say that, without spoiling too much, is that one get a little bit too much over its head, and then everyone gets it like that, and then it just kind of took a pep talk, and they were like, hey, you know what? Hey, you know what? It's my fault. Then can you forgive me? Yeah, sure. And they rush up that moment. Although, despite that, well, it still kind of won the game, at least on that one. It's not like it kind of brought kind of like this big giant consequence or something like that. Well, maybe that's again a little bit nitpicky. Maybe that's saying that the consequence is that even though you put the team first, and because there's something that happens that I'm not exactly not gonna reveal too much because I don't want to spoil too much. Yeah, the things that matter the most will also will lose interest in you. It will scare you. So that's the thing. Also, if there's a little bit of a nitpick with the main character, is that the main character feels like his story arc is a little bit too simple. This character, well, he basically is kind of like a little bit too much of a golden child. Although that's mostly in the on the second half. The first half at least you can see him struggle, and to be fair, he's a better character than other golden boy characters that I've seen in other sports media. That, I mean, thankfully he's not like Captain Tsubasa. Captain Tsubasa, little by little, he becomes one of my least favorite anime character because he's such a golden boy that when you see him struggle, you doesn't kind of believe it too much. This is why I kind of like underdog stories that have kind of like believable protagonists. Like, well, the kid Will is one of them, and of course, I could give you also the example like Joe Hibiki from well, let's call him Joe from Ashita no Joe, and also Senna from iShield 21. But I think that at least his genuine love to the sport and his good attitude is contagious, and this is what basically the team needed. But overall, Goat was a very fun movie. It is a good watch. It made me really happy. It has some some passionate moments, some nice moments that you can tell that it's genuine. They have some genuine passion on making this movie, but also while not trying to be the best, they're just trying to make being good. So what works work. But that's right. That was indeed. And so far, the GOAT of animated movies of this year. And we just already started this movie. So, well, it doesn't harm to dream big.